Welcome back to the RipeWave audio community. My name is John, and for this video, we continue our RipeWave audio series on home theater amplifiers in 2022, and this time it's with OSD. This series started with the Monolith brand, followed by Emotiva, ToneWinner, IOTAVX, Outlaw Audio, and last week we brought you Amplifier Technologies, ATI. And so with this video, OSD, this is the 7th in the series, and we will keep going. And I think next week we will be bringing you NAD, and based off of some feedback on the community site, we are also going to cover some of the professional audio brands like Crown and QSC. So stay tuned for those videos as they are released. But this time it is with OSD. And who is OSD? You see them sometimes listed as Outdoor Speaker Depot or Optimal Speaker Design. But either way, this is not a speaker. This is an amplifier we're looking at. So they've gone beyond what their letters stand for and delivering amplifiers for some years now. With this video, we are going to look at the amplifiers that they put out that are targeted more for home theater than for distribution. Now, of course, those distribution amplifiers could be used in a home theater, but as we've been going along in this series, we have set those aside for now and just focused these amplifiers that are more suited for home theater applications. So we're going to look at the Nero line with 3 of their models, their 3, 5, and 7 channel products, the XA3200, the XA5180, and the XA7180. And then finally, we're going to look at their beast of an amplifier, their Theatro X11, which tops off a big jump in the price from their normally under $1,000 products to something that is currently selling for $3,368. The first model we're going to look at is their 3-channel model, which is the Nero AX3200. And this is a new model for 2022. And this model has 3 lights on the front that are similar to what you might find on an Emotiva product. And in the manual, they describe what the different color codes are for these lights. So if you do see a yellow light, that means it's in a standby mode. And when it detects signal on the channel, that it will turn to blue. If it, and so blue would be operational. So if it changes then to red, then you've got a protection mode and there's something that needs to be attended to. So that's the job of those 3 lights. They don't provide any sort of level indicator. They're just pure status lights. And on the back of this, we can see that it accepts both unbalanced and balanced connections. One thing I have noticed that there is no switch present to select either the unbalanced RCA connection or the balanced XLR connection. It must do some sort of auto detect, or it's just always accepting signal from either. So that's a little bit unknown because the manual really doesn't get into how that is handled. Is it one or the other or both always live? So that would be interesting feedback if one of you happens to know. But this is pretty generally what you see on the back of an amplifier nowadays. The AX3200 sells for $700 and gives you 3 channels at 150 watts. And like always, we'll get into the details on how that 150 watts is determined, but that's all channels driven. The next model up is a 5-channel model, the AX5180, and it sells for about $100 more at $799. I don't have the exact release date. I know I could find materials stating this back to 2021, but it could have been out in 2020, but it isn't been on the market for too long. This gives you 5 channels at 135 watts, so a little less than the 3-channel model. And a very similar look and layout, and so it follows the same design language as the 3-channel model. just with the 2 additional channels. And the status LEDs operate exactly the same way. Now moving to the 7-channel model. Now this one was also introduced this year with the 3-channel model. This is the AX7180 and sells for $999. So in each case here, we're moving up, essentially $100 for each model here. So you get the 2 additional channels to the 7-channel model, and this gives you 122 watts for each of these 7 channels. And again, the exact same language and the way this looks. So this is certainly a family. So the 3, 5, and 7-channel models all go together. So what they've done this year is added the 3 and the 7-channel models to the pre-existing 5-channel model. Looking inside, we don't have discrete pictures that show the 3, 5, and 7, but what we do have is an inside shot that OSD posts on their website showing the fully populated 7-channel model. So if you can just visualize some of these modules in the back being removed, taking 2 away gives you the 5-channel model, taking another 2 away gives you the 3-channel model. But otherwise, this is all going to use a toroidal power supply with some capacitors in there to carry the load for peak passages on demand, and very professional looking interior here. And these are not unlike what we see from the likes of ATI and from Outlaw Audio. We'll do some side by side in this video, but we'll go into more depth at the end of the series when we do more of a comparison. OSD within their black range has this beast of an amplifier, the Theatro X11, and this thing is huge. This is the tallest amplifier that we've looked at to date. Now, as I said, this is currently selling for $3,368, but the original price tag on this was $7,000. Now, what we can tell, this was originally launched in 2020. This gives you 11 channels of amplification at 380 watts. This is giving you the most power per channel and the most channels out of anything from OSD. And turning this thing around to its back, you can see that it's really like 2 amplifiers put together in the same unit. You can see that it takes 2 IEC power cords. You got the first row with 5 channels, and you've got the second row with 6 channels. So that's for the total of 11 channels. So I'm a little confused about who will be buying this. The whole point of doing a high density amplifier on 11 channel amplifier is to conserve space and use less room in your rack rather than buying 2 separate amplifiers. Or in some cases you feel like, well, because we're using a single chassis, we're cutting down on the cost. But this is not an inexpensive unit, and it doesn't really conserve space. You could easily buy a 5 and a 6 channel amplifier, stack them on top of each other, and accomplish a very similar thing. This will be an interesting product to get some feedback on. OSD does not publish their own interior shots of this, but I did find from Life of Bliss, one of their videos, and I'll put the link in the description if you want to go and look at his video. He does a good job. He takes the cover off. He gives an explanation of what he's seeing inside. But this is a 230-pound amplifier, and check out his link for that. He shows the interior of the Treatro X11. But otherwise, we don't find a lot of reviews on this product. Looking at all these side by side, you see the OSD models, but I also wanted to show the Outlaw Audio models because I think there's some similarities between the Nero AX5100 and the Outlaw Audio model 5000X, as well as the Nero AX7180 and the Outlaw model 7000X. You're looking at almost the same prices for each of these for the respective channel counts you're looking at almost the same output power, and that's debatable on how you do your measurements. I mean, are these really sharing technologies? Perhaps is also using ATI to design their amplifiers. I would not be surprised if that is the case. And of course, with this side-by-side view, we can see how much taller the Theatro X11 is versus a traditional amplifier. I mean, this, if you were putting this in a rack, this would use up a lot of space. Flipping around to the back here, we can see the consistency between models. The Outlaw equivalents or similar products use a slightly different layout. So at least on the back plane, you can't say that this was exactly the same device. But again, they're suspiciously close there. And inside of this, and of course, we didn't have the photos for the 3200 and the 5180, but just use your imagination. If you remove those modules, for three of those modules and 5 of those modules, you'll kind of come up with the same. There we can see the interior shot of the Outlaw Model 7000X looks almost identical, if not identical, to the 7180 from OSD. Now, we don't have an interior shot of the 5000X, but the 5000 without the X, we have a picture of, and things are a little bit different. The toroid is on the left versus the right. But I'm imagining that that also matches up with, so the 5000X probably is exactly the same interior layout as the AX5180. So this kind of helps build the argument that OSD and Outlaw are sharing designs, and they're probably both from ATI, the design. Whether they're manufactured in the same place, that is unknown to me. Now it's on to our specification comparison, and we'll keep Outlaw audio in the mix here so you can really see this comparison once again. And all of the models, except for the Theatro, have an input impedance of 40 kiloohms, whether it's balanced or unbalanced connection. They all give you a single trigger input, but no trigger output. But when you go to the Theatro X11, the input impedance goes from 40 kiloohms down to 20 kiloohms, but you gain the output trigger, which we like if you have downstream amplifiers. But what's confusing to me is where you really need the output trigger is when you're going to use multiple amplifiers. So you think models with less channels have more of a need for an output trigger than the Theatro X11. But this is what they've done. The cost per channel ranges from the 7-channel models at $143 per channel, which is really, down to the lowest cost models that we see out there. Emotiva BasX is the only one I think that beats that. But only goes up to $306 per channel with the Theatro X11. So these are really affordable. The OSD labels their product as a Class H, so it's a specialized version of AB. Outlaw talks about theirs being AB but not H, but I think it's going to be all Class AB with a Class H topology with different rails switching, a high rail and a low rail. And that's what I think is consistent through that, although the literature talks about these things differently between the brands. The Theatro X11, the specifications on that are quite thin. They don't even tell you what class of amplifier is being used. We can just assume it's an AB as well, but lacking detail. In fact, it doesn't even tell you the gain that the X11 is delivering. The rest of them are at 29 decibels. They all talk about 4 and 8 ohm load impedances. Whether this will dip up or below those range, it's unclear because they don't talk about 2 or 16 ohm loads. As far as the output wattage, the 3-channel model is going to give you 150 watts. So when then you move to 5 channels, it's 135 watts. Compared to the Outlaw 5000X, which is 120 watts. And then when you do to 7-channel models, it drops down a little lower. So we've got the NX7180 at 122 watts. Outlaw is going in the opposite direction to 130, but they might be doing their measurements a little different. It's unclear, albeit they're doing this both at full range. All these models are measured at full range. And the THD, Outlaw does it better. I mean, they go down to 0.02 and 0.03% versus OSD is just giving you measurements at 0.1%, which is not quite as good of a measurement there. A little more forgiving on that, so you get actually higher values. So that might account for the difference between 120 watts versus 135 watts. So maybe OSD coming out with their models a little later wanted to show a little more power with theirs, so they went to 0.1% versus 0.02%. So that's just a guess on my part. Outlaw Audio does not publish a signal-to-noise ratio for their products, but OSD does, and that comes in at 104 decibels, a weighted. The Theatro X11 is 110 decibels, so a little better. So even with all those amplifiers packed in, they're giving you higher output at 380 watts, 600 watts into 4 ohm, and it's doing it at 110 decibel signal-to-noise ratio. So they are definitely giving you a little more power there, and with the repricing down from the original 7,000 price, that brings you down to 306 per channel. So it is a good value, but I still question that this is the right approach to an amplifier. And we'll see that more on the next page when we get into the physical side. All the amplifiers, these are multiple modules going into each of these. They're all treated the same. There isn't another group that's doing it at a different value. So we only have one group of specifications here. Now, please note that some of the 4 ohm ratings are done at 1% versus 0.1 for the OSD models. Now, for the physical connections here, you can see here that they're all using about 6 inches on the height, which is 152 millimeters. They're all 17 inches wide, 432 millimeters, and have a depth of 17 3/4 or 425 millimeters. And those are for the Nero from OSD, and the Outlaw Audio models are all using the same size chassis. Of course, the Theatro, the big one, and you're at 18.3 inches tall, 465 millimeters. But what really gets me here is the weights. So on the Nero and the Outlaw, you're dealing with between 48 and 65 pounds, or 21.8 kilograms to 29.5 kilograms. So these are reasonable weights. They're not light, so it's suggested these are using quality components, but it isn't exorbitantly heavy that most people should be able to move these units occasionally. And Outlaw coming in at the same weight further indicates these are sharing technologies. But the Theatro, 234 pounds. How many people can lift that much? That weighs more than me. 106.1 kilograms. This is where I think it just kind of kills the whole idea of this product. You need a forklift to bring it into your house. Do yourself a favor and buy 2 separate units. You could put together 2 models. Gosh, you could buy 2 of the 7180s. That's $2,000. Granted, you're not at the same power output or quality, but you could go into some other companies' products and and put two together for the similar price and be able to move it around nicely. The OSD gives capacitance values between 20,000 and 47,000 microfarads. These come in just under the ATI higher end models from like the 6,000 and the 4,000 series where they publish it. But these are good, respectable values on the capacitance, so it gives you a little more oomph when on the peak passages. The crosstalk is at -70 dB, so not as good as what we see from ATI, which ranges between 80 and 100 dB. So a little on the lower side there. But again, we are not doing deep comparisons on this video. The power connections are all removable. They all support 120 volts, but there is no option for 240 that we can tell. So if you're international, you will need a transformer in ahead of these to utilize them. So like, obviously there's no auto selection on the voltage because it doesn't work with anything but 120. These all use toroidal power supplies, a single one, unless you're looking at the Theatro, which we believe is 2, although we don't have any positive proof on that. Even the video from Life of Bliss did not show the inside of the power supply section. He did not take that apart. So that really covers it all for OSD. What do you think of this company that's named as a speaker company, but now they have these amplifiers to power their speakers? They're doing it at a very good price. They're doing it at what appears to be a good quality. What are your thoughts on the OSD amplifiers? Would you prefer to go the OSD route, or would you go to the Outlaw audio equivalent? That feedback would be useful to the RipeWave community. So please add your comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this RipeWave audio community, and be sure to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when the next video is posted. And if you want access to all this information we're collecting, our PowerPoint presentations, our spreadsheets, our Excel spreadsheets, with all this data so you can go and do your own analysis and ask further questions and be part of the community a little bit more, consider being a Patreon. And we'll put the link here, which is www.patreon.com/RipeWave. And I can hope you can join us. Until the next time, keep evolving your audio experience.